hopefully one day I can meet Psycho Stu and shake his hand and have a man-to-man with him and stuff like that. But who knows? But y'all, the people that know me, y'all know me. Y'all know I got mad love for everybody. And
with me, bro. Real shit. One of them was a bitch and fucking bit me. I'm tired of everybody playing with me and shit. Think I'm always playing and shit. Call me bitch and shit.
When Raja brings Psycho Stu down, it's not great. And Stu lands in a way and he hits the back of his head and he looks as though he perhaps lost a level of consciousness right then. All right. Either way, this is what happened. And either way, Rampage Jackson, from my vantage point, is working out the spot the way it was planned.
Rampage Jackson. It's one thing to be caught in a scandal, but it's another when the scandal drags in a family tragedy so dark the internet can barely process it. On August 25th, Quinton Rampage Jackson, the legendary fighter known for his knockout power inside the UFC, finally broke his silence about his son's viral controversy. What he revealed wasn't just shocking, it peeled back a layer of pain most fans never knew existed, because this wasn't just a fight gone wrong. It wasn't just a viral video, it was the story of a young man named Rampage Jackson, whose outburst inside a wrestling academy didn't just end with an unconscious victim. It ended with millions of people demanding answers. And in the middle of it all, Rampage himself admitted the unthinkable. His son has not been the same since the day his mother was murdered. That one sentence turned the scandal upside down. Suddenly, the world wasn't just asking why Raja punched a defenseless man. They were asking how deep his wounds went and whether the ghosts of his past had finally exploded into public view. Because behind the viral headlines and the legal drama lies something much heavier. A son haunted by loss, a father caught in the storm, and a family name dragged into a nightmare they can't escape. And while Rampage insisted his son's trauma has nothing to do with the violent scandal, fans weren't buying it. To them, the connection was impossible to ignore. But if Rampage was trying to protect his son, his words may have only made the fire burn hotter, because what started as a wrestling stunt spiraled into a crime scene. And now, the Jackson family legacy is being rewritten in real time.
This is what happened, chat. He went to a pro wrestling event with his coach. Those pro wrestlers, they be just as crazy as MMA guys, right? The pro wrestling guy don't know my son, and he hit him over the head with like a can or a beer can or a bottle or something.
Dog gotta go to prison. I usually don't like to involve myself in other men's situations, but I feel I'm qualified to speak on this. And dog messed up. And if it's Rampage, I love Rampage. But Rampage, turn your son in.
When we're in the ring and I'm breaking it up and he shoots a fucking double leg on me, by the way, work a better fucking double leg, you fucking prick. And then I'm telling you to fucking calm down. I'm not even fucking fighting. I'm not even being fucking hostile. Then you're trying to fucking work and get lower, do this, change positions, and I'm over here having to swim with you, all this other shit. And then you fucking punch me in the fucking eye. After we're breaking it up, you fucking loser.
August 25th wasn't just another date on the calendar. For fight fans, it became the moment Rampage Jackson stepped into the story that had been haunting headlines for weeks. In a video posted on his own website, the former UFC champion addressed the controversy surrounding his son Raja for the first time. And his words hit harder than any punch he ever threw in the octagon. Rampage didn't open with excuses. He didn't dismiss the footage as fake. Instead, he leaned into a painful truth. His son has not been the same since his mother was taken from him in one of the darkest chapters of their family's life. His tone was heavy, his voice strained, and his message crystal clear. Raja is carrying a weight that few people could ever imagine. But just as quickly, Rampage tried to draw a line in the sand. This don't got nothing to do with nothing that's going on, he insisted. It was his way of saying that Raja's trauma, no matter how deep, couldn't be used as a shield for the chaos that unfolded at the KnockX Pro Wrestling Academy. Yet the contradiction was impossible to ignore. He acknowledged the wound, but then denied its connection. To fans and critics alike, it felt like a half-truth wrapped in fatherly protection. And that's where the story twisted even further, because the moment Rampage admitted his son had been broken since his mother's murder, the internet latched marched on, comment sections flooded with debates. Was Raja's violent outburst the result of unchecked grief? Or was Rampage just trying to soften the backlash by painting his son as a victim? The silence from Raja himself only made the questions louder. What was clear, however, was this. Rampage had pulled the curtain back on a family secret few knew about, and by doing so, he shifted the conversation from a viral fight clip to something far more chilling, because now, every punch Raja threw wasn't just seen as rage, it was seen as the echo of a tragedy he never recovered from. But if Rampage's confession gave fans a glimpse of Raja's pain, the viral video of the incident would remind them why the scandal had become impossible to ignore. And that's where the story takes its darkest turn.
Dumb animal, put him in a cage, straight up. Not a human, not allowed in society. Control yourself, bitch. Him. Bring that sparring partner back, tornado kick him again, animal.
The best part about that is like he needs his rest and his space, and his family needs their rest and their space, and I don't want to be an extra person pushing in on time they could be spending with.
It all started at the KnockX Pro Wrestling Academy, a place meant for over-the-top theatrics, crowd-pleasing stunts, and exaggerated drama. But on that night, the drama became all too real. Rampage Jackson wasn't there to perform. He wasn't on the card. Yet in a moment that was captured live, he became the headline of the entire evening. The footage is hard to forget. Raja, standing just off stage, suddenly lunges forward and delivers a crushing punch to professional wrestler Seiko Stu. This wasn't staged. This wasn't a performance. Stu wasn't bracing himself or playing along. The strike landed flush, and in seconds, he collapsed to the ground, limp, motionless, unresponsive. For the first few seconds, the audience thought it was a show. Wrestling is built on smoke and mirrors, tables breaking, chairs smashing, performers selling pain. But when Stu didn't move, the mood shifted. Gasps replaced cheers. Laughter turned into silence. Then the panic set in. The cameras kept rolling, streaming the chaos to every corner of the internet. Within minutes, the clip was being replayed on Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube. Millions watched as Raja stood over a man who looked broken. What should have been an amateur wrestling night turned into a viral moment that painted Raja as something far worse than a brawler. And while fans struggled to process what they had just seen, the authorities were already taking notice, because this wasn't entertainment anymore. It was evidence. As the video spread, so did the outrage, and it didn't take long before the Los Angeles Police Department stepped in. To them, this wasn't a viral stunt, it was a crime scene streamed in real time. Detectives confirmed they were investigating Rampage Jackson for assault. Depending on the injuries, the charges could escalate fast. Legal experts weighed in, warning that Raja could be facing aggravated assault or even attempted murder if the victim's condition proved severe enough. That wasn't internet speculation, it was the reality of California law, and with clear, high-quality footage of every second of the punch, there was no room for denial. The irony? Raja didn't try to hide. He didn't delete the video. The entire thing remained public, dissected frame by fans, critics, and investigators alike. Every slow-motion replay became another nail in the coffin of his reputation, and while the police had all the evidence they needed, they hesitated. Their next move depended on one thing: whether Seiko Stu would press charges. That silence left Raja hanging in limbo, caught between internet infamy and the possibility of a courtroom trial that could define his future. But the police investigation was only half the storm, because the world wanted to know. What happened to the man who took the punch? Seiko Stu wasn't a household name. He wasn't a UFC champion or a WWE superstar. He was a journeyman wrestler, known in small circles, respected by peers, and passionate about his craft. But in a single night, his name became global, because he was the man lying unconscious at the feet of Rampage Jackson's son. Eyewitnesses described a chilling scene. Stu's body went limp, his chest barely moved. For several long, terrifying minutes, he didn't respond. Some in the crowd whispered that he had flatlined, while others claimed they saw blood pooling from his mouth. Medical staff rushed in, working frantically as the audience shifted from shock to horror. Rumors spread quickly: broken jaw, shattered teeth, possible brain trauma. None of it confirmed, but every new detail fueled the fire. To fans, it didn't matter if the rumors were exaggerated. What mattered was the image of a man who looked like he had been destroyed for no reason. And yet, Seiko Stu remained silent. No public statements, no interviews, no confirmation of his injuries. That silence became its own story. Would he seek justice, or would he walk away, leaving Raja's fate in the hands of the court of public opinion? For Rampage, that silence was even more suffocating, because every day without clarity only deepened the pressure on his son. And while the world speculated about Stu's health, Rampage was forced to confront something much darker, his family's tragedy colliding with his son's scandal in the most brutal way imaginable. For Quinton Rampage Jackson, the scandal wasn't just another headline, it was personal. This wasn't a rival fighter trash-talking him or critics questioning his legacy. This was his son, caught in the middle of a storm that no parent ever wants to face. And the hardest part? He had to balance his role as a father with his reputation as one of the most recognizable figures in combat sports. On his stream, Rampage admitted what many fans had suspected. Raja has been carrying a heavy weight since the murder of his mother. My son hasn't been the same, he confessed, his voice heavy with grief. But then, almost in the same breath, he tried to draw a line. This don't got nothing to do with what's going on. That contradiction became the heart of the debate. Was he protecting his son from public judgment, or denying a painful truth that was written all over the scandal? Inside the MMA community, opinions were split. Some sympathized with Rampage. They saw a father struggling to defend his child, while quietly acknowledging that trauma changes people in ways outsiders can never fully understand. Others weren't so forgiving. They argued that tragedy couldn't excuse violence, especially not violence that left another man unconscious and possibly scarred for life. The dilemma cut deep. If Rampage defended Raja too hard, he risked being seen as blind to the damage his son had caused. But if he stayed silent or distanced himself, he would be branded as a father who abandoned his child when the world turned against him. Either choice stained his legacy, and while Rampage wrestled with his emotions, the world's attention shifted from family tragedy to something even colder, the legal consequences waiting just around the corner. The murder of Raja's mother isn't just a footnote, it's the shadow hanging over everything. Rampage's admission cracked the door open to a story most people didn't even know existed. Behind the violence, behind the viral outrage, was a young man who had been carrying grief for years without ever truly healing. Friends of the family whispered that Raja had struggled ever since the tragedy, that he carried his anger like armor, lashing out in ways he couldn't control. Rampage's words on August 25th confirmed those fears. Raja's life had been split into two parts: the person he was before his mother's death and the person he became after. But here's the hard truth: grief may explain behavior, but it doesn't erase responsibility. Fans were quick to point that out online, comment threads filled with arguments, some saying he's a victim of trauma, while others fired back. Plenty of people lose loved ones and don't attack innocent people. This tension turned Raja into more than just a viral villain. He became a cultural question mark. Was he broken, or was he dangerous? Was he a product of tragedy, or the architect of his own downfall? And while the internet fought over that narrative, another piece of the puzzle threatened to make the situation even worse. Because Raja's actions weren't just violent, they were public. The incident might have faded into the background if it had happened in private, but it didn't. It happened live, on stream, in front of thousands who clipped, shared, and reposted the footage within minutes. That changed everything. Suddenly, this wasn't just about a single punch, it was about the culture that rewards chaos. Reports even surfaced that Raja joked about getting subs for a KO, fueling suspicions that clout, not rage, was his true motivation. Whether that line was real or not, it became the narrative. To millions of viewers, Raja was no longer just a grieving son, he was a symbol of how far people will go when attention is currency. Boxer Ryan Garcia was one of the first to speak out, warning that streaming culture has spiraled into something dangerous. People will risk their lives for views, he said bluntly. His words echoed what fans were already thinking. The internet doesn't just record violence, it encourages it. For Raja, the live stream made his actions impossible to escape. Every second of the punch, every moment of Stu's body lying still became digital evidence that could be replayed forever. What might have been forgotten in a matter of days turned into a permanent black mark, etched into internet history. And if fans were already divided, the law wasn't. Because while social media debated grief versus clout, investigators saw something far simpler: a crime caught on tape. By this point, the scandal wasn't just about Raja anymore. It was about the fight world itself. Fans, fighters, and media outlets split straight down the middle, each side convinced they knew the truth. On one side were those who saw a broken young man. They believed Raja's pain, fueled by the loss of his mother, had finally boiled over in a moment of raw humanity. To them, this wasn't evil, it was a crime. cry for help, but the other side refused to let sympathy cloud the facts. They pointed to the video, replayed millions of times, and said there was no excuse. Trauma or not, Raja hit a man who couldn't defend himself. The punch wasn't a mistake, it was a choice. And choices, they argued, come with consequences. Social media only made the divide louder. Hashtags trended worldwide. Debates raged in Twitter spaces, podcasts, and YouTube comment sections. Was Raja the villain of the story, or a victim of circumstances bigger than himself? Even Rampage's legacy got dragged into the storm, with critics questioning whether his name was protecting his son from harsher judgment. But for all the arguments, one truth remained. Raja's reputation would never be the same again. No matter which side people stood on, his name was now tied to one of the ugliest scandals in combat sports history. While the internet fought its war of opinions, the legal system prepared for something far more concrete. Detectives had the footage. They had witness statements. What they didn't have was Psycho Stu's voice, and that made all the difference. Because in cases like this, everything hinges on the victim. If Stu presses charges, Raja could be staring down years behind bars. Legal analysts suggested aggravated assault at minimum, with the possibility of attempted murder if the injuries were as severe as rumored. But if Stu stays silent or refuses to cooperate, Raja might escape prison, but not the stain on his reputation. Rampage's influence, his fame, even his money couldn't erase what millions had already seen online. Courts could decide punishment, but the internet had already delivered its verdict. Every headline, every replay, every angry comment became part of Raja's permanent record. And as the weeks passed, uncertainty hung in the air. Would the victim step forward? Would Raja face trial? Or would the scandal slowly fade, leaving only a scar on the Jackson family name? In the end, this story was never just about one punch. It was about grief colliding with clout, trauma mixing with violence, and the razor-thin line between entertainment and disaster. Raja Jackson wasn't just a young man caught in a viral scandal. He became a symbol of everything dangerous about streaming culture, about fame, and about the cost of losing control. For Rampage, it was a nightmare no father wants to live. Watching his son dragged through the mud, knowing his words could either defend him or condemn him further, was a burden heavier than any fight he ever endured in the cage. His confession about Raja's pain gave the world a glimpse into the family's tragedy, but it also tied his son's scandal to a wound that may never heal. And for Sicko Stu, the victim left unconscious on the mat, his silence became just as powerful as the video itself. With every day that passed, the uncertainty of his decision kept Raja's future dangling by a thread. So now the question lingers. Was Raja a grieving son who snapped under the weight of tragedy, or a reckless aggressor who crossed a line he can never come back from? The truth may lie somewhere in between, but one thing is certain: in a world where attention is currency, Raja Jackson paid a price far heavier than fame could ever offer. And the story? It's far from over.